And after their marathon session all weekend in the Senate, up till 1 a.m. last night, senators will be joining each other at 9 a.m. this morning to begin what they're calling the voterama, and that could again take them past midnight tonight. So joining us to discuss it all this action in the Senate is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and the host of Can We Please Talk podcast, as well as Michael Busler, professor of finance with Stockton University, as well as a public policy analyst. Gentlemen, so great to have you with us this Monday morning. Mike Leon, starting with you, what are your thoughts as the Senate kicks off this voterama, as they're calling it?
It's a good name. It's an interesting name. Good morning to both of you guys. We were talking about this in our last episode, Carrie, and the Tom Tillis soundbite that you guys played, we played on the show as well, about a full 2-minute exchange of him. And he mentions about the promises made, promises kept. And the last time he heard something like this being broken from a promise perspective was President Obama talking about you can keep your doctor and keep your plan when he was trying to introduce the ACA when he was campaigning. So it's just interesting to see that this bill has caused a senator to say he's not even going to come up for re-election in 2026. He's going to retire. He doesn't want to deal with all of this anymore. That's just the political angle of just looking at it just from that perspective. But now the practical angle is really what I'm trying to get at, right? Because this bill, and it's mentioned there a lot, and Melina did a great job mentioning there in the package before it came on, was really about, just look at my state in Florida, Carrie, for example. There's $1.6 billion that the federal government gives to SNAP programs here in Florida. Florida's going to have to make up that money. 5 to 25% is going to have to be made up from the state of Florida to, let's go be honest, like distribute those funds for people that are on those programs, right? And then you've got probably about 1.6 million people that are on SNAP or look for SNAP benefits here in the state of Florida. I'm not even touching Medicaid, which probably has millions of people here in the state of Florida that rely on that and the requirements around that. So there's a lot of challenges. I think what's starting to play out right now is that members in the House and Senate realize that they're going to have to start doing town halls. They're going to have to start going back out on the road, and they're going to have to start explaining why people are going to start losing certain coverages. And they're going to get an earful from constituents everywhere. That's the big political fallout that I see from all of this.
Yeah, Michael Busler, your reactions.
So everybody agrees that government spending is way too high. It was about 4.5 trillion in 2019. It's up to over 7 trillion. So everybody agrees we have to cut government spending. The problem is everybody says cut spending, but don't cut it in any area where it affects me or my constituents. So one thing, when Elon Musk was in charge of Doge, he was supposed to find waste, fraud, and abuse. People that are collecting these benefits who really should not be collecting them. He found there were 10 million people collecting Medicaid benefits that were not eligible. So the bill simply says anybody who's not eligible to be collecting, and why aren't you eligible? Because you are able to work, and for whatever reason you aren't working and you're living off these benefits. We have to cut government spending. Every area where we try to cut it, people say, well, it's going to affect me. Don't cut it here. So the Medicaid spending cuts and the SNAP spending cuts are for people who should not be collecting. There is a work requirement, something Bill Clinton did back in the late 1990s, saying if you're collecting welfare, there should be a work requirement for that. He called it workfare. This bill says if you're collecting benefits and you're not working, you have to start working at least 20 hours a week. You can even do volunteer work for 20 hours a week. So what this tries to do is get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse that has been building up for years. We have to cut government spending. That's all there is to it. We have to cut government spending. We'll try to do it in a way that it is as less painful as possible, but this big explosion and a $37 trillion public debt and a nearly $1 trillion annual interest expense, we cannot go on.
Yeah, and to your point, Michael Busler, it seems like even amongst the Republicans, some are holdouts because of not enough cuts, while some are siding kind of with the Democrat point of view that these Medicaid programs are going to affect people who should be eligible. But it seems like there's the majority consensus among the Republicans that they are striking this balance. So, Mike Leon, did the weekend's marathon sessions give you any insight into what the deal making might look like in today's voterama session?
Yeah, see, that's a good question, and it kind of funnels into what I'm going to say and piggyback on what Mike is talking about. Like there is things that are wastefully spent on in government bills, or at least tried to, at least enroll them into something that doesn't have anything to do with what the larger name of the bill is. For example, like the Infrastructure Act had something with relation to $25 million for like the Lincoln Center or the Kennedy Center, up in New York. And you're like, why is that bill in here? There are things that are abusive, right, with respect to what government does. And then there are certain things and principles that are fraudulent that need to be eliminated from government spending. But I think there are ways to go about it. And this is kind of to your point, Carrie, because like Rand Paul, for example, we played his speech yesterday on the episode. And his big thing is like, even though there are economists that will talk about, and you can fudge numbers in either direction to kind of give the narrative that President Trump wants to about bringing down the deficit. But his argument was, not only does it not bring down the deficit, some of these things won't take effect until 2030. And the shelf life of somebody running for Congress is going to end up in 2026 or in 2028, which means that, again, back to what I was just saying, Carrie, that these folks know that they're going to have to go back on the road as they're trying to get reelected, as Republicans are trying to stay in power or potentially expand their power with respect to the House in 2026 and the key Senate seats like Tom Tillis' seat, which is coming up for reelection. And I think Tillis and Paul, even though they're, obviously they sided with the Democrats with respect to that initial 51-49 vote, I think what's important to listen to is some of the ways, to Michael Busler's point, that they feel that they should make cuts, but that this bill doesn't address. And I think in today's voterama, we're going to see some of those negotiation ploys. Before this all started, Carrie, when this came up for a vote in the House and the House voted 215 to 214 narrowly, we had two members of Congress on the program to talk about this. And one of them said to us, he's like, look, we got to see what it looks like when it comes back to us from the Senate, because right now there are certain things that I don't think if we had to do it again for another full vote, we may get another few Republicans that join us, right? We obviously know about Thomas Massie is a hard no. He's already been tweeting out on a tweet storm about the president and this bill overall. So I think in today's voterama, it's really imperative to see what is introduced, what is negotiation, where do we get the Rand Pauls and not Tom Tillis obviously anymore, but where do we get the Rand Pauls of the world to potentially say, okay, this has been added here. I'm okay with that because it doesn't totally cut everything that these folks that are on Medicaid and SNAP are looking for from a benefits perspective. So I think that's going to be the big thing that the viewers out there should watch for before we go to that House vote on Wednesday, potentially. Yeah,
I think that's very interesting element to it. And the Democrats actually made the Republicans read the entire nearly 1,000 pages. Right. It probably cost them a day and definitely is going to make them a little cranky today as they try to get through the voterama. Michael Busler, I'd just like to get your view. Where do the fiscal conservatives versus the more moderate conservatives, where do they gel on spending? How do they advance this in the voterama?
That's the problem. Rand Paul will not vote for this because you're not cutting enough. Tom Tillis won't vote for this because you're cutting too much. So somewhere you have to have a compromise. Look, if we look at the big picture here, the U.S. went from the birth of a nation to the largest economy in the world in about 125 years, most prosperous. We did that, I believe, because of four basic principles, and I think this bill follows those principles. So real quick, what were they? We encourage individual freedom. As long as you didn't infringe upon anybody else's rights, you can pretty much do what you wanted. Secondly, we encouraged individual responsibility. As long as you're mentally and physically able to take care of yourself, everybody pretty much took care of themselves. You had family, of course. So individual responsibility, not social responsibility. Thirdly, we had low rates of taxation. So, whatever you earned, you were going to keep most of it. And fourthly, we had a limited role for government. Certain public goods like defense of the country, leadership, et cetera, were provided by the government. But other than that, the government got out of the way. This bill follows those principles. It encourages people, there's some deregulation in there, encourages people to do things with individual freedom. It encourages individual responsibility, not social responsibility. It lowers rates of taxation, and it reduces, at least tries to reduce, government spending. For that reason, I think this bill will end up passing. Now, the Senate version, as Mike pointed out, is different than the House version. They have to reconcile that, and that may not be as easy as we think. But ultimately, we need to pass this bill, keep people's taxes down, don't allow the Trump tax cuts passed in 2017, implemented in 2018 to expire, and will encourage people who are freeloading from the system to get out there and at least do some work. This bill has to pass, and I think in the end it will.
Well, there's your prediction, Michael Busler. Mike Leon, love to get your prediction in our last 20, 30 seconds as we finish up, as well as just see, do the Democrats have any cards left to play? They made them read the whole thing. The Republicans are probably sleep-deprived and cranky. There'll be a lot of coffee in the chamber. But do the Democrats have any other tricks up their sleeves that they can do?
Kerry, like a magician, they're all out of tricks. They've got no more tricks up the sleeve. Chuck Schumer said it when he talked about this. What tricks do we have? We're going to make them read the entire bill so the American people know what it is that's in this bill. So, that's what they're going to do. But look, Michael Busler is right. And Kerry, you and I have talked about this. And I think it's incumbent upon us in the media that ask questions of elected officials, we've got to hold them to something so that way voters see in future, hey, this person said this, and then they went against that. What's happening right now is we always chase these no votes potentially, and they don't come to fruition, right? Kudos to Tom Tillis, let's be honest, for being principled and standing up for what he wants to do. Regardless of how you feel about the bill, it's more of he's taking a stand. He was voted for by these constituents. He knows how it'll affect them. And to Michael Busler's point, a lot of times, hey, look, we've got to cut some things. And people lie in this is not cutting enough, this is not cutting too much. So I think the no votes will potentially come around. We saw Lisa Murkowski already come around and vote for the initial version. We'll see in the House what happens here. Again, besides Massey and maybe Representative Nicole Malachorkis that was playing prior to, and I just butchered her last name. But I highly doubt that there'll be people like that will hold out, because they know that in 2026, Kerry, the primaries are right around the corner in the House, and every House member is up for a seat. And so that they know that this is what the president wants to get enacted into legislation, they've got to go along with the show. This episode of Can We Please Talk is presented by our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee since 2009. They've been our proud sponsor. You see the promo code there. Look at this. They sent me this beautiful kit right here. Listen to that. Listen to that seal coming out, right? What's in it? Environmentally safe, compostable K-Pods. I love the dark Mexican blend. You can go to their website right now, take the quiz. That quiz is going to put you with a flavor profile. Listen to that sound of the coffee that you're going to be matched up with. Go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Click the link right now in our show notes. You can see it right there. Click that link. It's going to take you to the site. When you get to checkout, use our promo code, Can We Please Get 20, all one word, Can We Please Get 20, 20. You're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com, our official sponsor of the Can We Please Talk podcast.